So for the more adventurous traveller, Japan is an amazing place to drive. Check this out. I've just come down a little dirt track in the middle of nowhere, and I've come across this beautiful river and this abandoned cafe that looks like it's been reclaimed by nature more recently. So let's go and check it out. Japan has a lot of abandoned buildings known as Haikyo. In the 1980s, the economy boomed, everyone had money to spare, and they built restaurants, hotels, shops throughout the countryside. And then when the economy came down in the 90s and the population started to drop, they all began to close. And that is why today, the countryside is littered with places like this. Wow. Judging by a lot of the things in there, it can't be that old. This is probably somewhere between 5 to 6 years old, because I think I remember that design of CC Lemon from like 7 or 8 years ago. It looks like there's a lot of stuff still in there. There's fans, pots, kettles, green tea. The netting's seen better days, but it looks like everything's still inside actually. Wow, that would have been a great jump scare moment. Why do I get the impression this is quickly going to turn into a found footage horror film if I make the wrong move or I make a misstep, particularly down these degraded concrete steps? I'm going to use the power of imagination and speculate what happened here. Shit. Why didn't I just stay in the car? Alright, so if you look at the front of this cafe, the front bit has been seemingly swept away, right? The trees collapsed. We are next to a river that is gushing pretty heavily right now, and on the drive down here there was a sign saying be careful, the river has a tendency to overflow. So what I think happened is the river burst its banks and washed away the front of the cafe. However, I don't think that's the reason that the cafe is abandoned. You can see there's a bridge here that looks quite old, probably built in the 1980s. What you can't see is over that hill there's a big highway that has been more recently built, and I think that highway diverted a lot of traffic that used to take this bridge, thus people didn't come down here anymore, thus the cafe had no business, and that's why it closed. And that is why I am the world's greatest detective, even though it's painfully obvious what happened here. And now, to celebrate, I'm going to get eaten by bears. There you have it, another benefit to driving in Japan. You too can briefly become the world's most underwhelming detective. Haikyo are pretty common though. Just earlier on we drove past a huge degraded forgotten hotel that in hindsight would have been more interesting than the cafe. I don't know why I didn't film it, to be honest. There is something quite rewarding about finding Haikyo though. It's the idea of piecing together a story, the idea of discovering something that's supposed to be forgotten. Perhaps above all though, it just feels at odds with Japan, a country where everything has its place, a country where there's scarcely any litter to be found, and yet you turn a corner and you come across a degraded hotel, a run-down cafe, a forgotten tunnel. It feels like something of a contradiction.